Welcome back to another episode of the Vibe with Kai podcast, where we dive into the heart of mental health conversations, shining a light on topics that matter most. And today we have an exceptionally important and enlightening discussion planned, focusing on the experiences of men living with ADHD. This episode is not just about uncovering the challenges, but it's also about celebrating the strengths and discussing the support systems and understanding the journey of those who navigate life with ADHD every single day. And I'm thrilled to introduce our esteemed guest from the Men's ADHD Support Group, a beacon of hope and empowerment for men with ADHD across the globe. Each of these guests brings a very unique perspective, a wealth of knowledge, and a personal connection to ADHD, making this conversation one that I've been looking forward to for the last couple of days now. So this is really exciting. So first up, we have Brendan Mahan, an ADHD and executive function consultant, coach, speaker, and host of the ADHD Essentials podcast. Brendan's approach combines education, collaborative problem solving, and accountability with compassion and humor. Having ADHD himself, he brings a personal touch to this professional expertise, making him a highly respected figure in the ADHD community. Hi, Brendan. How are you, man?
I'm doing well. You?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Thanks for being here. I appreciate it. Joining us next is I practiced this like 45 times before we got on. All right, here we go. Coming up next is our next guest, Marc Almodovar. Yeah. Close.
We can work with it. It's Almodovar, but that's
Almodovar. We went over this. Oh,
all good.
Oh, I was so close. All right, I'll get that next time, I promise. Marc is the founder and president of the Men's ADHD Support Group. Diagnosed with ADHD at 16, Marc has dedicated his life to advocating for a holistic treatment approach to ADHD, especially in men. Through his work, he's not only challenged the stigma surrounding ADHD, but also created a supportive community for men to share their experiences and find solidarity. Hi, Marc. How are you? I'm going to get your name right next time. I'm going to do it.
No, it's okay. It rarely happens. No worries at all. But I'm really pumped to be here and loving your energy. So thanks for having us on.
Right on. Absolutely. Next, we have Shane Thrapp with us today, a certified life coach specializing in ADHD strategies for career growth, relationships, and functional systems. Shane's journey includes navigating personal struggles with ADHD, leading him to become a passionate advocate for the neurodivergent community. Shane's work with Men's ADHD Support Group and Shane's coaching practice, Creating Order from Chaos, have empowered many to find balance and purpose. Shane, hi, how are you?
Hey there, I'm doing good. It's a Monday. Let's have fun with
it.
this.
It is a Monday. Today's a very Monday, if I say so myself, but we're here. Last but certainly not least, we have Kristian Moton, an organization director, educational specialist, and a motivational powerhouse within the Men's ADHD Support Group. Kristian's personal narrative as an African-American queer man with ADHD brings a critical lens on the intersectionality within the ADHD community. Shane. Kristian's advocacy focuses on inclusivity, representation, and empowering neurodivergent individuals to embrace their authentic selves. Those are our guests today, and today our conversation will navigate through their personal journeys, the mission and the impact of Men's ADHD Support Group, and the broader challenges and triumphs faced by men with ADHD. Today, we aim to shed light on the importance of speaking openly about ADHD, understanding the diverse experiences of those affected, and exploring the various support mechanisms available. That was a long intro.
Dude,
but we
knocked
did
that
it.
out.
You
killed that too.
That was awesome.
Man.
Like, can you just go ahead and like save all that? Send me that clip. I'm just gonna put that on our podcast and do like that's just our intro.
Listen,
that's my affirmation for the morning.
Listen, that's all we have time for today, folks. Thank you so much for joining us. I'll see you next time.
Me out.
We're just here for exposure.
No, I'm super excited to be here. No, it's well worth the time. It's funny. I was saying to Shane earlier this week, I was like, I really wanted to do a roundtable discussion with men about men's ADHD for the longest time, and now we're actually like this is actually happening. So I'm glad that our paths are crossing right now. So what I want to do, I want to go by one. Shane, I'm going to start with you. If you don't mind, just kind of sharing your journey with ADHD and what led you to become involved with the men's ADHD support group.
All right, keep it under 2 minutes. Keep it under 2 minutes. Okay, so fast version. No, I was born in the rural South. I'm about as country as I can get, and I was raised in this very Ozarkian backwoods redneck village, which was fine. The nearest Walmart was only 70 miles away, and growing up in that community as undiagnosed ADHD autistic was interesting. You know, And so I dealt with a lot of that stuff. And as I grew older, I started recognizing, like in my upper 20s, that I was different and like coming to terms with it and accepting like I was just different. I didn't know I had ADHD or autism at the time. It wasn't until like I met this amazing woman who's a special needs teacher, started really digging into it because my son was diagnosed with ADHD. And then I started just hyper focusing on ADHD. I know way too many things about the brain now that I keep falling down those rabbit holes. I don't know the Latin names for the brain parts, but I know all the things, right? But and that just kind of turned into a thing. I got really sick in 2018, stressed, burnt out, disabled, essentially. And then I had to remake my world 2019, and then I started my project management business back up, and then I started taking on life coaching because I found it to be really interesting to help people go through and not mess up as much as maybe if I can save one person from having to do that, I made an effect on the life or on the world, And then I found Marc, and I messaged him, and I was like, yeah, I really want to get involved. I'm super excited about this. I was like, really, digging in here, and here's all the comments I made. I'm great. And Marc ghosted me for a month. So that happened.
Oh, wow. You just called him out. Called him out.
It's a running joke for us. It's a running joke. No. But no, it turned out really awesome. And then in 2022, we were sitting around on a Zoom call, and we were like, so where are we going to go next? And we were like, let's make a nonprofit. And Marc was like,
that's amazing.
Okay, let's go.
Amazing.
And it was it.
I think
like 2 weeks later, nonprofit.
That's amazing. And look at you now. I mean, this organization has grown to feats. Like I don't even know if like you knew how important this would end up being for so many men in this world. So like this is great. I'm really happy that all worked out there. I think this is a perfect segue over to Marc. Okay, Shane just called you out. You have to have a response to this. What is your response? And tell us about your journey, your ADHD journey.
Well, the response is that he just gave you proof that I actually have ADHD, and I'm not lying when I say that I haven't. So one of the things is we forget to reply to messages, and that happens to be an ADHD moment for me. But it goes back to, I mean, throughout my whole childhood, I knew that I was different, and report cards consisted of things like Marc is there, but not really there, the disorganized desk, sloppy handwriting, all those type of things. And I pretty much lived most of my life, at the time at least, without a name for my thing, awareness of how my brain works. And when I was 16 years old, I was severely depressed, struggling in school, and at that time, I had gotten a diagnosis of ADHD and started treating my ADHD, but it wasn't until I was maybe around 22, 23 years old where I actually started to take my ADHD seriously. Like, how can I actually learn to not just get by with this type of brain, but actually survive and thrive with this way of thinking? And as I was doing that, as most of us ADHDers know, we have a really all or nothing mindset, right? So my all or nothing mindset went to personal growth. And I wanted to start thinking about how I can help others with ADHD. So at the time, that looked like getting a certification in life coaching, creating content for people with ADHD. And I started to build some amazing connections. A lot of people that Brendan Mahan knows, and Shane knows too, and Kristian too. And I was seeing all these different people that were doing such amazing work within the community. But one thing that really caught my eye was that boys and men are the ones that are extremely, highly diagnosed with ADHD.
Sure,
However,
yeah.
when it comes to those of us at the time, at least, that were actually doing something about it and supportive and safe spaces for men with ADHD, at the time, I mean, it really wasn't existent. So I was literally going for a walk, and I thought to myself, let me just try out a small little Facebook group at the time called the ADHD Men's Support Group. And, I thought to myself, no one's probably going to join. It's worth a shot, though. did the group, and for about a year, we were a small little 50-member community, and the pandemic hit, and the need for mental health support just skyrocketed. We started growing from 50 to 100 members a week. I partnered with my buddy John Hazelwood, who's one of the co-founders of our organization, and we were like, let's make this into an actual community. Started doing Zoom meetings and everything like that. Shane came along, made it a nonprofit, and we are now, a 17,000 member organization of men with ADHD. And the fun thing about it for me is that I get to talk with you. I used to do a lot of these interviews very solo, just talking about
Yeah.
me and the ADHD support group. Now I show up to these type of podcasts. I show up to these type of conferences with a team who leads and directs the organization with all their different strengths, and it's just an exciting mission to be a part of. And there are moments, ADHD to me can be extremely challenging, and there's also some times where it's beneficial. This was one of those times where I had an impulsive idea and it changed my life for the better.
Yeah, that's incredible. Like the growth, and you had mentioned how in 2020, I guess something happened in 2020 that the world was just like, I can't remember. Everything like with good reason. I mean, the mental health kind of took a forefront on a lot of categories, including ADHD, and so I'm really happy that you ended up creating a safe space for people, for men specifically, to talk about this and to not only just talk about it, but educate. Because I know for me, I was diagnosed at 34, so that was 2 years ago for me, and I knew nothing about ADHD. I was very ignorant when it came to ADHD. So this was all new to me. And it's because of organizations like yours and similar ones where I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm not alone. It's a very validating, reassuring experience for me and for thousands, if not millions, of other people. So thank you for doing that. This is let's move over to you. You had mentioned Brandon, and when you were talking about everything. Tell us about you, Brandon.
Yeah, so
I keep saying Brendan.
Brendan, yeah, it's cool. Yeah, so I got diagnosed as an adult in my 30s, not too different from you. At the time, I was a teacher, so my background is education and counseling. I've got a master's in education and a master's in counseling, so like my education is heavy in that way. And when I taught for a while, I bounced from school to schools. Schools didn't have a lot of money. I was undiagnosed with ADHD. I ended up leaving the classroom and was like, I'm either going to be an ADHD coach or I'm going to be a guidance counselor. So you needed the master's in counseling to become a guidance counselor. I got the master's, but ended up becoming an ADHD coach instead of the guidance counselor. About 8 years ago, I started the podcast. I created a model called the Wall of Awful that people have often heard of because it was on Jessica McCabe's How to ADHD. It's a bigger than I am. The podcast is reasonably sized. Like I didn't get to take advantage, for lack of a better term, of COVID in the way that a lot of people do. A lot of people blew up during COVID because of the demand for mental health.
I'm one of them.
Yeah. I had personal demands going on during COVID. My son has obsessive compulsive disorder, and I was managing his OCD during that time instead of doing anything with my business, really. A little bit of stuff, but not much. So that was the priority. But he's better now. He's 1,000% better. I got my kid back thanks to the McLean Hospital in Massachusetts. And now I'm back doing the podcast, writing a book on the Wall of Awful. And I'm part of this men's ADHD support group. And that grows out of, I did an influencer panel at the conference a few years back. I brought John Hazelwood, who Marc already mentioned, to come be on the panel because a panel like that should be used to raise someone's platform up. That was the plan, was let's raise John up and the men's ADHD support group up. And that was how I met Marc and got connected to the men's ADHD support group in a more significant way. But mostly like I'm friends with the guys doing it, you know? And then Shane one day was like, you're coming and going to be on the board, right? And I was like, oh, is that what's happening? And
didn't even give it a choice.
He didn't. Shane doesn't always give people a choice with stuff. He's very like, this is what's happening, just so you know.
I'm just passionate. I'm passionate.
It's a very charismatic and endearing way. He's ingratiating is what he is.
I'm also annoying. I am annoying.
No.
And so I came on. I like to say I'm the wizard when it comes to this group, right? Like I think of myself as Merlin, because I'm older than these guys. I've been doing this longer than these guys, but it's not my job to lead. That's Marc's job. Marc is the leader, right? Like that's what's up. I'm Merlin. I'm Gandalf. I show up, I do a little magic, and then I disappear for a while and do my stuff, and then I come back and I impart some wisdom, and I like give them whatever they need, and then I disappear for a while, and then I come back, right? Like that's my job, is to sort of show up when I'm needed, provide the support and the I'm old and know stuff as a result sort of wisdom, and bring in some magic of like, hey, I connected us to this person or these people or whatever, and my name is well regarded and well known, so hopefully I bring a little gravitas to the organization as well. But that's the deal, and I can't be more proud of the work that this organization is doing, and I'm genuinely honored to be counted among its members.
I hope you know I'm going to be calling you Gandalf for the rest of this podcast now. I hope you know this.
It's either that or Merlin. The frame was Merlin because Marc's Arthur was where it started. But but Gandalf's the one who wanders off and comes back. So yeah.
So all you need is the pipe, and then you're set.
Nice.
All I can sit here and imagine is in the Lord of the Rings when the two hobbits are trying to like go off and like make potato soup, and they're just like wandering off, even though there's like people trying to kill them. Like,
that's a vibe.
So,
that's a mood right there.
That's ADHD,
man. I love it. Last, certainly not least, Kristian Moton. Hi, my friend. How are you? Thank you so much for being here. Tell me about you.
Doing well. I hope you're doing well too. This is an amazing space, man, that you're curating, man. This is really dope.
Oh, thanks, man.
Let's see. Do I have a life story?
Just a little bit. Just a little
we
bit.
literally did an
little
entire
something.
podcast on it.
Oh my gosh, I guess. Yeah, I do. I got actually like some of the group, I actually got diagnosed when I was like 14. But very, very similar to a lot of people of minority experience. My mom wasn't having it. So I didn't really get to come into my own as a person who's aware of their diagnosis. And so I was like in my early 20s when I had kind of like failed out of college. And I was trying to figure out like what was going on. And that's when I remembered my diagnosis. And Brendan had mentioned earlier about Jessica McCabe and kind of like how she's been like an amazing person. I had listened to her TED talk, Failing at Normal, and it really like resonated with me. And that's when I kind of like really took my own diagnosis like really seriously. At that point, I had pivoted from school and became an educator. I'd worked in after school education, and my main focus was in social emotional learning and kind of peace education. So helping kids kind of come up with a vocabulary for their own feelings, being able to advocate for themselves. And I kind of like stumbled into that position, but I was like really excellent because I knew what it was like to be on the ass end of I'm sorry, I don't know if I can curse or not, but
you're allowed. You're fine. You're good.
Okay, cool. All right.
You're fine.
It's the evening time and we're grown. All right.
Yeah, so, we are grown adults.
Excellent. So yeah, I know what it's like to be on the ass end of an educational experience where you're kind of like the subject, but not necessarily actually being educated. So I guess I became a like really fantastic educator within my organization and within the schools. And that's because if I'm bored, I know the kids are bored, and we have the same type of like level of like attention. So it really worked out. And I guess I actually formed a practice before anything else. And then the pandemic hit, and we had to do this behind a screen and in my home where my PlayStation is and where my bed is. And I just knew that was a recipe for disaster. But what I did know is the importance of community. And I learned that in my practice as being an educator. And I also knew that from my experience in church. So I knew that I needed to be able to adapt and be able to be a part of something that could hold me accountable and that I could also kind of like participate in. And it just so happened that through some connections between Jessica and another friend of mine, I had learned about Marc in Twitter, and he was actually, this was at that point where he was linked up with John. Hey John. And we kind of I think I followed them from there.
Yeah, I just want to
And
give a huge shout out because I know exactly who it was. I'm sorry to interrupt, Christian, but it's actually Renee Brooks from Black Girl Lost Keys.
oh yeah, Renee,
Yeah, supposed to be
for
linked to one of our
sure.
meetings.
Tyrus,
Yeah.
that's the Renee I was telling you I'd introduce you to.
Got it. Represent Philly, right? Represent Philly.
Yep. Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
She keynoted the conference 3 years ago.
Yeah.
2 years ago. So
Amazing.
And then she called me by name.
that-
She's an amazing person.
I see you. One thing that I love about these introductions that we just did right here, is that there's every story that was just told right now, I feel like encapsulates the general consensus of what men with ADHD have to deal with. You have people that were diagnosed when they were young. You have people that were diagnosed fairly recently, and I love that there's like a whole just like various segments here, and I think that's important because there is no matter how long you've been familiar with ADHD, I feel like there is a stigma obviously behind it, especially when it comes to men's ADHD. Shane, from your perspective, why do you feel there is such a gigantic stigma surrounding men and ADHD?
Ignorance, lack of dissemination from the scientists who are doing the studies to the parents and to the children. ADHD is probably one of the most studied neurodevelopmental disorders, right there with autism. However, it is significantly behind the curve because there's a stereotype that grew early on, just that crazy ass white boy over in the corner setting fire to the paper towels for no reason at all. And that stigma stuck because a lot of the people getting support were the white kids, like the affluent. And it just started from there. It started gaining this traction of just being a super negative thing. And then there's the added issue with, people conflating the fact that people with ADHD have a higher likelihood of having addiction, right? To Adderall is addictive. And that's the only reason why people try to get ADHD diagnosis is because they're part of that 25% of college students that are trying to get high, and that's super frustrating, correlation, not causation. That's why we see that stuff like that. It's the other way around. We know that medications are one of the highest reasons why the people can get away from addictions with ADHD.
Right. Why do you think? What do you think we can do to fix that?
What we're doing, honestly, raising the voices, raising awareness. Leaders in the social media and on like TikTok and Instagram, like you and others, where you keep not just talking about ADHD and the struggles that we have, but also the strengths that we have. Developing an understanding that difference is okay, that being different, living different, being, thinking different, all of that is important. And that, we just keep disproving, right? We need influencers like you. I'm going to use you as an example, right? We need people like you talking to scientists and doctors like you do on this podcast and disseminating that information out in a way that other people will understand.
Sure.
Right? And people like Brenda Mahan and, what we do on the men's group, we take this very convoluted issue, break it down into component pieces and start feeding it to the masses in ways that they can understand it. And then like through the weekly calls, it's all about educating. Part of the first thing that people with ADHD need to be doing is educating themselves on their ADHD and how it affects them. Sorry, rant over. I apologize.
No, you're fine. No, you're fine.
Can I piggyback on that for a second?
Absolutely.
I think the reason ADHD gets stigmatized is the same reason that anything gets stigmatized. And that is, if I can other you, I gain power. Because if I'm able to other you and put you into kick you out of the in-group and you want to get into the in-group, then I have more control, right? one, me kicking you out gives me some measure of control over you, but that probably isn't what I'm looking for. What I'm looking for is control over the other people in the in-group, right? Because if I'm saying that this kind of behavior, this color of skin, this person that you love is not acceptable, then the people who are in my in-group are going to behave the way I said that they should behave, right? And that's a lot of what goes on with ADHD and why it was stigmatized early on is you've got, like Shane said, right, kids who are being impulsive. We can go all the way back to Tom Sawyer, right? Like the novel Tom Sawyer is about two kids with ADHD, Tom Sawyer and Huck Finn, right? And both of them are outsiders because of their ADHD traits. And it's a way to maintain control, right? Down to if you have ADHD, you're going to have trouble in holding a job, making money. And that further pushes you away out of power, out of the in-group. It makes you more of an outsider. A lot of this stuff is just a way to control people and a way to maintain power, including like the early diagnosis stuff was not looked at from an ADHD lens. It was looked at from people who don't have ADHD, looking at folks who have ADHD and saying, this is what's going on, even though they were wrong. What's happened recently, especially since COVID, is in some ways the democratization of information, right? All of a sudden, people with ADHD are able to get a voice thanks to podcasting and Facebook and social media and all this stuff and YouTube. And because we're able to get a voice and have a say and share our stories, the lens on ADHD is changing. And the level of stigmatization is declining because of exactly what Shane was saying, what you're doing, Kairos, what I'm doing, what the Men's ADHD Support Group is doing.
Yeah,
sorry to get super academic on you.
No, this is really important. I love all of these perspectives. This is what this conversation is all about. So I love it, and I'm really glad that you brought up the word other. That both of you brought up the word other here because
my job as a white man to say that stuff.
No, I was going to say actually that's
I use my white privilege.
Yeah, but that's one of the reasons why I brought it up because I know like just from the little that I do know about the research behind a lot of things regarding ADHD is that a lot of the original research was done on white men and not on anybody in the Black community or
white boys.
Anybody in the LGBTQ community like. Right, exactly. So I feel like even to this day, there is still so much that we need to learn about, how ADHD affects other, other people. And Kristian, I want to go over to you to talk about this. Can you talk about the representation side of things, why this is important for people that are not only, minorities, African American, but people in the LGBTQ plus community as well?
Yeah. So I think queer people, I think by like we're kind of like used to kind of like having that thick skin, having that stigma and kind of like maneuvering and navigating, right? So I think when we talk about ADHD and how we perceive the world, I think there's a level of, there's a level of adding to the story. I think just by being kind of like stigmatized, like we talk about this like a lot, just me being Black and me speaking out, that's already kind of like a political act, right? And now that we're talking about, because my work is very much aligned with education, a lot of it is now, giving a voice to those students, giving a voice to those young people who don't have vocabulary to advocate for themselves, right? And like, when we talk about men who are queer and we talk about like, it's really just a conversation about language and being able to kind of like help these people to define their experience. And because now we have language like LGBTQIA plus, we can now speak about, this is my experience. This is how I show up in the world. Right. And if we don't have those types of conversations, if we don't have conversations like this, how do people become seen? How do they know that, oh, wait, I can exist. I can be here. Wait, I can absorb. I can stand in space too. And I think, we do a lot of work in the men's space intentionally because, so often we have to just show up as people. You started this conversation off, right? Before we even got recording, it was like, you don't have to be robots, right? So much about
Mm-hmm.
what we do is about output, so much
Yes.
is like what we produce. But the work that we do is so like we're trying to change that narrative. So, when I think about my queerness, I think about, I have two thoughts, right? It's like, one, how do I continue to advocate for myself and be that example, right? So in this leadership role, like, yeah, I'm queer, yeah, I'm Black, what? Like, we're gonna move on. We're gonna move on from that,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
But to a certain degree, like, know that I'm here, know that I'm here, know that I'm doing the work, and I'm doing it for you. You know what I mean? That's what servant leadership is. That's what service leadership is. It's like, how do I bring us all up? So like, you dealing with like my queerness, I'm like, no. We need to on track. How do we get to where we need to get to? You feel me? So that's how I be. And then I'm also New York too. So I'm not like, I'm not showing up. I was like, you can see me. I'm up in the Bronx. Come through.
Right. I can't. Oh my God. I love it. I can always tell. Because I'm a city boy, so I can always tell when I'm talking to another city boy. So like I'm with you 100%. And one of the things that's great. I think one of the things, because you're talking about helping us get to like the next level, like what we need to do to continue to have this conversation. Social media has played a role in that, both for the good and not so good sometimes, but I think mostly good in regards to spreading the message about ADHD and helping to educate people. Marc, from your end, you have a background in the social media side of things. Can you talk about the role that social media has played in this conversation?
Yeah, it's played a huge role. And I mean, I'm obviously biased with the fact that most of our work is on social media and it's how we reach the majority of our members. But here's the deal. When it comes to navigating ADHD, if you explore ADHD spaces and ADHD podcasts and everything like that, almost very few times will you see podcasts or support groups meetings that are just about focusing or reducing hyperactivity or things like that. People with ADHD struggle. Like, they struggle, right? And most of our lives, we live our lives thinking that we are crazy. We live our lives thinking that there is something wrong with us and that we are broken and that everybody else is just, I don't know, everybody else is doing so much better than us and everything like that. All these lies that we believe, unfortunately, for most of our lives. So what we find is that when we decide to do something random like social media, like look up on social media ADHD and find a support group and impulsively join it, when we do something like that and we hear Fred on the corner there on Zoom talking about how, he is having relationship issues with his girlfriend because his ADHD is really showing up and his laundry is like overdue. And as I'm thinking about that, I should probably get to my laundry too. I'm just randomly thinking about that. But
You made me think of it too.
yeah. As Fred is talking about that, Jake, who's newly diagnosed with ADHD, is nodding his head as he's listening in, and he's like, "Oh shit, I'm not the only one that struggles with this," and that's a powerful thing. There's a space for learning all the tools and hacks and everything like that, but there's a strong space for feeling understood. And social media is something like, kind of like you mentioned, it can be something that's a force of bad or a force of good. And when we're talking about utilizing it as a force of good, we're talking about finding people who share similar interests, people who understand the way that you work, and putting yourself in spaces where you can be around those people a little bit more often. That's where social media can be amazing. Like, I'm thinking about how cool it would be if I was 16 years old with ADHD, super struggling with self-confidence, and I don't say this in like an egotistic way, but super struggling with self-confidence, and I see somebody like myself who's speaking confidently and crushing it in life. You know what I mean?
Yes.
That's
It's
the gift that
reassuring.
social media has given me. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And like you said, it can be either good or bad, and I'm just a big fan of utilize it to find your people and learn more about how to live your best life with the brain that you have.
No, I know what you're talking about, like, very much so, because ever since I started talking openly about my ADHD, depression, anxiety, and introversion, it's really very validating and reassuring to get messages and emails and DMs from people saying, "Hey, what you just talked about in that video, I know that feeling. I feel like I feel that every day." Like, that kind of thing, to know that I'm helping. I think, Shane, you were saying it before, to know that we're helping one person. Like, because people talk about like my following all the time. Like, "Oh, Kai, you have so many followers." I don't care how many followers I have. I really don't. If at the end of the day, I know if I can help one person, especially, like, let's just say it's just one Black boy that just happens to be scrolling through TikTok and just happens to see one of my things, and like they see that, somebody like that looks like him is okay going through the same stuff that he's going through, feeling the same things that he's feeling, to know that it can be okay. It's going to be all right. Like, that is all I care about. That's all I care about, and that's my biggest goal. This one is for everybody. There's going to be a lot of men that are listening to this. Well, a lot of people, but just men in general, that are going to be listening to this right now, being like, "I don't know if I have ADHD. I hear people talking about it all the time. I see stuff coming up on my, on my Instagram, my TikTok, and all that." If there is a guy out there that's listening right now that is not sure about how to approach educating themselves about ADHD, whether they have it, whether they should, go talk to a therapist about it, whatever it may be. If somebody else is out there listening, what would you say to them right now? And that's just for anybody can take this one.
I'm gonna let the professional with 2 degrees about this talk about it, and then I'll chime in after that. Because
So-
that's why we have our Gandalf and Merlin. So
Brian probably has this answer in the can already, and it's said it 1,000 times. So you're just saying someone's not even newly diagnosed. Someone's wondering if they have ADHD or not. What should they do? Kind of a thing, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I could open my closet and go get the books. I would say start with How to ADHD. Start with Jessica, because her stuff there's a lot to it. It's short, it's quick, it's easy to process, and it's vetted, right? That's the biggest challenge, is to find vetted information. Because there's a lot of stuff out there that's not great.
Correct.
I would caution you against going to TikTok, because a lot of TikTok is not well vetted. And the biggest problem with TikTok is the content is too short. You can't get to really good content when you don't have enough time to get there. So the next thing I would do is pick up Jesse Anderson's book on ADHD. I'm forgetting the name of it. It's ADHD Jesse is his Twitter handle. Look at that. My podcast is a good place to start too.
He
But it's aimed at parents, so some of it, like your mileage may vary. Am I back? Am I better? Sorry. So Jesse Anderson's book.
Yeah, you're back. You're back. You're good.
I'm back. Okay. So Jesse Anderson's book is a great place to go. It's just recently came out. It's a really quick primer. Jessica's book is a lot longer and thicker and heavier. It's dense. It's got great information in it, but it's a bigger read, right? Jesse's is a shorter read. So those are the places I would start. I also point people to the ADHD Survival Guide for Kids, or the Kids ADHD Survival Guide. I forget that. I mixed the title up. It's a great primer. It's aimed at like middle school kids. If you want to learn about anything, start with books aimed at middle school kids, because they'll give you a solid foundation with really easy to access information, and then you can go to the like snootier, higher end stuff later. But those are always a good place to start. And then like, once you've got a foundation, kind of, it doesn't matter, right? Like then you can wander around, because you can go, that doesn't feel accurate, or that does feel accurate. And don't be afraid to talk to a mental health clinician, a psychiatrist. If you're a parent, like, talk to your kid's guidance counselor. They probably know something, right? You're allowed. That they might not have a great answer, but they can point you. And if you're really not sure what to do, send me an email. Join the Men's ADHD support group if you're a dude, and ask questions in that group. Check out ADA. Check out Attitude Magazine. Check out CHADD. Those are all CHADD. Those are all ADHD organizations that are great. So yeah, those are the places I would start.
I love
Yeah.
it. Shane, you wanted to add on to that?
Yeah, because I want to also just emphasize, look, if you feel like your life is like really crazy and you're struggling and you're having a lot of issues with emotional regulation and anything along those lines, guess what? You should be seeing a psychiatrist anyways, because we need to take mental health seriously. And
Right.
regardless of whether or not it's ADHD or trauma or PTSD or autism, find out or rule those things out. At least figure out what you deal with, and then direct your thought process towards that. Focus on those things if you can focus, by the way. But and also just talk to your therapist. If you don't have a therapist, you should, because you're a man, and we need to be talking to therapists on a regular basis, because a lot of us deal with a lot of issues that we've ignored for way too long. Again, and I need, a lot of people are like, well, I don't know if it's ADHD or autism. It doesn't matter. Go find out. And if you don't have access to those kinds of resources, like the 11% of people with mental health issues in America do not, then join groups like ours. Follow along and see and ask your questions. I love the men's group because we're always so supportive. Like, you can go through our comment threads, and it's just people either identifying with the issue that the person's struggling with, or people who identify, but then here's what I did, right? And then there's the people who are like professionals, like me and Mark and Brendan and others like that, who are in there as experts, giving them the resources and the guidance, right? And there's also stuff like what we do on a monthly. We have an expert who comes in and talks about different parts and aspects of ADHD. Last month or 2 months ago, we had Dr. Bill Dotson. Last month, Dr. Roberto Olivardio, where we talk about food. This month we're going to have Dr. Carolyn Parcells, who's going to talk about medication specifically, not just like what it does, but what it doesn't do. And this is how you get it. And we work to give y'all a curated content or curated conversation that doesn't go down too many tangents and doesn't send you down too many wrong rabbit holes. We're going to send you down a rabbit hole. We just want you to go down the right one.
Right. Yeah. So
by
no,
the
I
way,
think
that's my fidget, and I'm so sorry. Because my bad, I'm hitting the wrong one. I'm supposed to be using the silent side, and I have a light switch part. That was me. I'm sorry. Yeah,
Sorry, dude.
I was like, no, it's funny because I purposefully have a silent one, because I used to have a loud one at work, and people were like, "What is that noise?" I'm like under the table, just like.
Yeah,
It's
I
like-
was
it's
just
either
with
this
George
one
and
or-
I, so I didn't shut everything down.
It's
I was
either
like,
that one
if
or
it's
my
coming, I
like
shouldn't
super
say
shiny
anything, but-
fidgety twister one. Yeah, sorry. Yep, that was me, because I was nervous, because I'm an introvert and I do public speaking for some kind of reason. I don't know why, but I enjoy it. But I still have to deal with the feelings and the overwhelm, and then like keeping my hands from going all weird and tickish.
I
You know,
I know.
ADHD.
Yeah,
So,
right.
listen, coping
this is as
mechanisms.
ADHD as it gets. These 5 people right here. This is as ADHD as it gets, my friends.
Yep.
Yeah.
One other thing. Yeah.
I've got to, like, if you're listening to this podcast and you're like, man, this guy, I feel like I deal with a lot of this guy's things, you probably have ADHD. You really should get checked out, like, just in case, because if you identify with any of us, you're like,
best podcast fidget that connects directly to what we were talking about before we started recording. Get a Batman action figure that has a
Batman action figure.
specifically, or a Superman. Superman works too, but Batman's a little better. Specifically, one that has a cloth cape, because then you have different textures, right? I have one. You can mess with the cape, get a little soft stuff to calm down. If you need more stimulation and it's Batman, you can push your thumb down on the ear cowls and get the little pointy bits, get a little sensation that way, and you can bend the arms and legs and all that stuff too.
Yeah, definitely. Brendan, I love you so much.
That is
I'm gonna use
there's going
that
to be a
That's fine.
there's a very niche ADHD audience right now that's jumping for joy that this that this made very happy.
Just like sprinting
um,
to their 500
right.
Batman in the corner.
Exactly. One of the things that Brendan had brought up was in regards to talking to a guidance counselor, and Christian, I'm curious,
Mhm.
do you, in your opinion, do you feel that there's more that the educational system should be doing to educate people about ADHD, especially for our young men?
Yeah. Oh man, we had a conversation about this maybe 2 years back, me, Mark, and John. And we were
And
talking.
that, by the way, and that could be the whole podcast right there.
That was
I guess I have to have y'all back. I guess I have to have y'all back to talk about it,
yeah. I think and I think what I was positing at that point was that if we don't have a conversation about community and giving people a language, again, like giving people a language for the experience that they have, giving students and young boys, young people a language to describe, like, hey, I feel this is how I feel about what has happened to me at this moment, right? So like before this, I work at capacity building for nonprofits now, but before then, educating, right? And with social emotional learning, we're teaching kids kind of like regular work, boundaries, how to say no to another student, right? And then what we recognize in those conversations, right, is like within a conflict, right? It's not necessarily like, oh, he stole my toy, like I'm like he's wrong or he's bad. It was like, why does he steal his toy? It was like, then you might find out as an educator, as an adult, like, oh, he doesn't have things at home. Wait, we need to address something else, right? And then, from friends to friends, it was like, hey, this is your friend, but this bad thing happened. Okay, so how do you one, child A, advocate for yourself and say, hey, this was wrong, right? And child B is like, hey, this is happening, but can you talk to me? Or is there another way for us to go about this? If you don't have those kind of like simple micro, the thing about the education system is we're so kind of like focused on the end product, on like testing and like grades and stuff like that. And now we're kind of like in the political space where it's like students can, as far as like identity is like, we care more about the identity for students and like what they could potentially learn that might be harmful or shape their minds afterwards. But we're still not giving these students like a vocabulary for how they will navigate and advocate for themselves outside of here, right? How much of, I guess, earth science have you used in the last week? Probably not a lot, right? Probably not a lot.
I feel like the answer should have been from me. So much earth science. I do it every day.
All the earth science.
I went down the James Webb Telescope Facebook page and I'm done, right? And I know that's not earth science, but it's kind of earth science because all the planets. Anyways, I'm done. I'm moving up.
As an ADHD person, we just hyper focus and then we learn it in 2 weeks anyway. So then what happens? And then we drop it. And then we're on to the next thing. So like, what did we really learn? But the things that we need to learn: how to navigate a relationship, you know what I mean? How to budget, how to, especially as a person with ADHD, I don't know how many conversations that we've had with our men with like, hey, let's talk about our finances. Let's demystify.
Oh man.
Right? If you don't
people knew how much ADHD plays into the personal finance side of your life. I don't think people realize. I certainly didn't realize that some of my issues that I had when I was younger, when it came to money, came down to my impulsivity, came down to my ADHD. I had no idea. And it's funny how much more money is in my bank account when I learned how to manage my ADHD. That's odd. That's weird.
It's crazy. Brendan, who coined that term, ADHD tax? Who was that?
I don't know the answer to that.
Actually, I heard it first from the guy from
Rick Webster.
Rick Webster.
Rick Webster.
I learned it from Rick Webster of Renify. He's a financial coach that we work with, and I feel like we're name dropping a lot, and I'm sorry, but like I don't mean it that way. Anyways, his name is Rick Webster.
Fine.
He's a financial coach for Renify, and like he has an entire talk on it, the ADHD tax, and I did not realize. Like you were talking about, I'm sitting there going, I'm looking at all of the collections of computer stuff that I've got around, or I'm looking at the 300 PS2, PS3 games that I've got sitting in a box somewhere in the corner that I've never touched again. Like, how much money did I spend on that stuff, right?
Yeah.
And like, I look at my Steam library. I'm a gamer, so I'm like, okay. So, but then like talking to Rick, he was talking about the ADHD packs, and he's like, this is why you have to learn, and this is what kids need to learn in school. To kind of turn back to that conversation, is we need to understand that. I won't go into all of my education reform issues, but we need to understand that there needs to be real world conversations that gauge a person's capabilities in practical aspects of life living. Not, oh, you've got to work 60 hours a week to make your money. How do I control my finances and find a job that covers those finances plus savings plus a little bit of fun money? Right?
Yeah.
Right.
But we put an ambition on, or we put the insistence on, oh, you've got to become the next Bill Gates. You've got to become the next, Elon Musk, or you've got to become this, the next TikTok star or the next YouTube star, or all these different pressures that we're putting on people that aren't even relevant to this person. They need real world practical application of life lessons.
Right.
Yeah.
I
sound like an old person yelling about home ec.
No, not at all. I feel like it's funny because I feel like this whole ADHD conversation, it reminds me that this is more of a marathon than like a sprint to the finish. Like I think Kristian, you had mentioned how we're always just talking about like the end result. We're not talking about the process along the way. So my question for you, Marc, is, knowing that it's a marathon, knowing that there's so much work that goes behind it, knowing that you've been personally working on it for the longest time, how do you stay motivated? What keeps you motivated to keep going every day to educate yourself and other people about ADHD?
Yeah. Well, Shane will do the work of typing up my intros and making me sound like really badass like you did earlier today. So that definitely keeps me motivated. But honestly, what keeps me motivated is that, man, my life has changed tremendously in the past few years. And starting the group, I've also found my support network. You know what I mean? And we don't really talk about that enough as men, how important that is to have those people that you can call when the highs are high and when the lows are low, right? And for me, I have found extreme benefit to keep going through all the struggles in my life when I can do something like call Shane, who's one of my best friends, and talk about a relationship issue that I'm having, or call Kristian and talk about a work issue that I'm having, and get some, even if it's not feedback, but get a listening ear to it. You know what I mean? But it's the fact that I am not alone that keeps me motivated tremendously. And the biggest thing of everything is knowing that I am benefiting who I once was when I was severely struggling with my mental health. When I see something like one of our group members talk about how the men's ADHD support group changed their life and inspired them to get the diagnosis and get the proper treatment, and when I can confidently say that that's happened a lot, that tells me that I'm doing something important, and that tells me I should keep going at it. Some good motivation right there.
Absolutely. I love, you can call Shane, for relationship advice. You can call Kristian for work advice, and you call Brendan to help you protect the ring from Sauron. Like, I feel like
that was great. Oh man, I didn't think of that.
It's amazing. I love that. Fellas, I love this. This is amazing, and I hope you know that like you're stuck with me now. So like I'm gonna have to have you back. I want because there's so much more that like I want to touch upon, because good Lord, we only scratched the surface with all of this. And what I want to do to kind of like wrap things up here is, if you don't mind, could each of you just provide a word of wisdom to men out there who are struggling with their ADHD? If you could say anything to them right now, what would you say? Shane, I'll start with you.
One of those things that I hear a lot from a lot of my clients and people in the group and even in discussions with friends of mine is a phrase. I'm pretty self-aware. And in the context of ADHD, a lot of people say that, but because of how our neurodevelopmental issues work, a lot of times what we grew up hearing is what we're self-aware of.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times with a lot of people with ADHD, a lot of that's negative. And so we are self-aware enough of the things that are supposed to be bad about us. And we very rarely learn how to find the positive things about ourselves and accept the different things about ourselves. And so, like, when you're working on ADHD, you have to start building a library of positivity into your life and then moving forward with it that way and replacing those negatives with the positivity. And that's what a support group does for you. That's what friends do for you. And all too often we isolate instead of reaching for help.
Absolutely. Brendan.
One of the things that men get trapped up in when it comes to ADHD is it's an excuse, right? And dads don't want to let their kids have ADHD because it's an excuse. They don't want to have an ADHD diagnosis because they don't need an excuse, right? ADHD is not an excuse for anything, but it's a reason for a lot of your struggles. And the way I split that hair is an excuse means I don't have to carry any of that load at all. I don't have to worry. I don't have to feel bad that I caused the problem. I don't have to try to fix the problem. I don't have to figure out how to avoid the problem in the future. None of that. I don't have to carry anything, right? A reason explains why the problem happened so that I can put down some of the emotional weight that I would otherwise carry for having made this mistake. And we need to put that emotional weight down because we carry too much of it most of the time. We either carry too much of it and feel bad, or we carry so much that we break and we just become a jerk and don't care anymore. So we need to put some of that down, a lot of that down, because we need to carry it. It's not important. And a reason also says, I am not excused for solving this. Like, I caused a problem. I have to fix it. I inconvenienced people in some way. I need to fix that. And I also need to figure out how to try to avoid this moving forward. But it lets me put down that emotional weight. And that's really critical to navigating all of this stuff. When I have an asthma attack, right, I don't apologize to people. I don't feel bad for being too lazy and unmotivated to breathe, because that's silly, right? I had an asthma attack. My lungs are not working as healthily and effectively as cardiotypical people, right? They just don't.
That was genius.
But the same is true for ADHD, right? My brain doesn't work as well as neurotypical people's do. So I don't need to apologize for being too lazy and unmotivated to do whatever it was I was supposed to do. It's not lazy and unmotivated. It's I have ADHD and that's what went wrong.
I think I'm lungotypical. I think I might be. No, listen. Brendan has 2 degrees, and I have 1. So I'm just saying.
He said
Like,
lungotypical. I'm like, I'm
Lungotypical.
dead. I'm dead right now. Wow. We're giving like nuggets of wisdom, and he drops lungotypical. Yes, I love this show.
It's like I podcast for a living.
Oh my God, Kristian! If you could give some words of wisdom to any men with ADHD out there right now.
I ain't following Longo. I can't beat that. I ain't finna beat that, man. Listen, I guess I'm gonna steal something from a video game. I'll say it's dangerous to go alone, right? And I'll say like, yo, you know, find your tribe. You know, find so much of our journey as men is kind of like, you know, bite the bullet, keep moving forward, do your own thing. And that's a lot. It's a straight up lie. Like, you don't gotta live like that. You find a group, talk to people, get it out. And like you find so much of your experience is not only to you. There's so much about ourselves and kind of like how people who are neurotypical will have to like deal with us, and like we deal with those negative things in our mind. But like, how do we, like, there's a whole community explaining this situation, talking to each other, coming up with language to be able to help us kind of like navigate and move. Like, you don't have to like you don't have to struggle, you don't have to suffer. That's just something that we built up because it looked cool, but it's not actually cool. And I think I had this word, I was cleaning, thank God I was cleaning, and this word came to me. It was like, just because you're in school doesn't mean you had an education. And that's not to lungo-typical. That is to the fact that some people, right? that is to the point that like some people, just because someone like succeeds in the system doesn't necessarily mean that they're smart. It means that they can work in that system. That system wasn't even built for you. There's so many things that you know that so many other people know. God, how many things that you know nobody else knows? Nobody else knows that, but you just like you eviscerated that subject.
100%.
That's
100%.
genius.
You don't want to know what I nerd out about. You don't want to know what I nerd out about.
I kind of do.
I do, and that's our work.
Man. But I'll tell you all afterwards what I nerd out about. It's so dumb. Marc, if you can give any words of wisdom to any men out there with ADHD, what would you say?
Yeah, well, first off, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie 8 Mile, but when Eminem, in the movie at the end, where Eminem is going against that rapper, it just destroys it, and you're like, now you go. Like, that's kind of just what just happened right here. I'm like, I got to sneak after all that. But what I have to say is that when you're learning to navigate ADHD, you really have to understand that the goal is not to learn how to be a normal individual. Okay, you will burn yourself out and you will come up short every single time. It would only ruin your mental health in the long term. The goal is to understand who you are. Of course, there's some things in society like taxes and organization and things like that you're going to have to learn about your ADHD, probably get medication if needed. But what you want to do is understand what your strengths are. Who are you? How can you make money from those strengths? And who are the people that are going to help you get to where you need to be? We need to stop living our lives trying to be something that we're not. We need to learn how to make our strengths work for us. And we have amazing resources. The Men's ADHD Support Group, ADHD Essentials is a freaking awesome podcast. You should check it out. And you need to be using social media and the internet to your advantage here to learn how to use your strengths to your benefit. So that's my piece of advice. And then Brendan Mahan to start a separate podcast called Asthma Essentials and introduce lungo-typicals. You go forward.
It'll just be me wheezing into the microphone. That'll be the whole show.
This is a weird form of ASMR.
Right. Which is okay. Oddly ironic seeing that Gandalf walks around with the pipe. So like this is like I mean I love it. Oh my gosh. Thank you all so much for hanging out with me today. To everybody that's listening and that's watching right now, that wraps up today's, I'll call it what it is, just an enriching, validating, reassuring conversation. Brendan, Marc, Shane, Kristian, all from the Men's ADHD Support Group. A heartfelt thank you to all of you for your vulnerability, your wisdom, your tireless work in the ADHD community. Your stories and your insight here today truly are a beacon of hope, and I hope it's a call to action for anybody out there to not only learn more, but to also support and empower others that are living with ADHD. Friends listening, watching, if you've been moved or inspired or enlightened by today's episode, I encourage you to learn more and support the incredible work that these folks are doing over at the Men's ADHD Support Group. Visit their website, dive into their resources, and consider making a donation to help them continue their mission of empowering men to live their best lives with ADHD. I'm going to include all of their information in the description of this podcast. So please, at the very least, just go visit their website and learn a little bit more. It's very important because together we can make a difference and build a world that celebrates neurodiversity and the unique strengths that it brings. So with that said, my friends, thank you so much for tuning in to the Vibe with Kai podcast. Remember, your journey of mental health you're not alone. We are all in this together. In the words of High School Musical, we are learning, growing, and supporting one another. Until next time, my friends, much love, good vibes, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.